Want to bring to order the September 13th, 2022 regularly scheduled board meeting for the Richland 2 Board of Trustees. If I can please have a motion to go into executive session.
Mr. Chair,
Ms. Mackey.
I move to convene an executive session for the purpose of a student appeal.
Motion made by Ms. Mackey. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Dr. Holmes. Is there any discussion?
Mr. Chair,
Ms. Agostini.
is there any chance that we can do the superintendent's evaluation during this period as well?
No, ma'am, because of working out attorneys and all the moving parts, we're going to need to do a second executive session.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion? All right, with no further discussion, we'll take the vote at this time. Is everyone up electronically? All right, we'll do the vote electronically. Motion passes 7-0. We'll now convene into executive session. All right, we're going to reconvene the September 13th, 2022 regularly scheduled board meeting for the Richland 2 Board of Trustees. We just returned from executive session where we discussed administration's recommendation for a student. If I can have a motion for the end of executive session.
Mr. Chair,
Ms. Mackey.
I move that the record reflect that executive session was concluded at 5:40 p.m.
Motion made by Ms. Mackey. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Dr. Holmes. Is there any discussion? With no discussion, we'll take the vote. And while I'm waiting on that vote, if I could have our speakers go ahead and come up for the inspirational moment, go ahead and start making your way to the podium. And Christine, who are we waiting on? Okay, we got it, 7-0, motion passes 7-0. So we'll now move on to the inspirational moment, the Pledge of Allegiance. Today, we have the Kinship Care Support Group, LaShonda Stewart and Wendy McConnell. They're going to provide an overview of the Kinship Care Support Group, what they do, and introduce some of the caregivers as guests. So I'm going to turn it over to you all to take the mic.
Yeah, thank you all for having us this evening. We really appreciate the opportunity to be here. So for those of you who are not aware, the month of September is Kinship Care Awareness Month. So in the spirit of raising awareness, we would like to read a short passage that really does a great job of defining exactly what kinship care is. So the author of this article writes, just like the superheroes in stories, there is a part of kinship life that the public does not see. We see a new retiree who was only supposed to take the children for 2 weeks, continuing to take care of his relatives now 2 years later. What we do not see is the depleted 401k account due to child care expenses and summer camps now that he has to return to work to take care of his family. We see a young woman with 5 children in tow. She's buying a van that she cannot afford. What we do not see is her utility bills doubling now that her nieces and nephews have moved in with her. We do not see her sleeping on her couch so that the children can have her bed. Let's also consider the relative who's fighting to keep a sibling group together so that children that have been separated into various homes stay connected. These heroes also often have to navigate Child Protective Services and the legal system without adequate legal representation or financial support. Throughout each of these stories, we can see the courage, the resilience, the persistence, bravery, and the love of these kinship caregivers who are fighting for their families, They're fighting for their children, and they're changing lives every single day. This month, we should honor them. We should honor them by standing in their corner, by advocating for them, by having their backs, and by filling in the gaps caused by the instant changes that have happened within their families. Although the referrals to agencies, food assistance, clothing referrals, tutoring, and all other supports are needed, and they are greatly appreciated. There's so much more that needs to be done. So please join us while we recognize our very own Richland 2 unsung heroes.
Can you stand? So we can see you. Thanks, LaShonda. I'm not sure if I'm close enough here. So what is a kinship family? Children in a kinship family are being raised by a family member other than their biological parents. This arrangement could be with grandparents, great-grandparents, aunts or uncles, nieces or nephews, or a close family friend, which is referred to as fictive kin. Here's a little bit of history about Richland 2's kinship group. It was established 13 years ago during the 2009-2010 school year. We are the only school district in South Carolina offering direct support specifically for kinship families. Our kinship group currently serves 91 kinship caregivers who have children enrolled in Richland 2, and we have many more that we haven't found yet, or they haven't found us. We choose speaker topics primarily focused on self-care, strengthening family connections, and are in an introduction to community and school resources, which are critical to these families. We offer 2 meetings per month. The first is a speaker-led discussion at our monthly meeting, and the second is an open discussion for kinship group members at our coffee crew meeting. So let me just talk a little bit about community partnerships and collaborations. We all know that collaboration is key in getting anything done. So collaboration is key in this case in providing quality information and support for kinship families. We have partnered with many local agencies that you can see listed on the left hand of the slide. We are thankful for local agencies partnering with us to bring quality information to our caregivers on a regular basis. We would also like to highlight our partnerships within Richland 2, which include Learning Support Services, Family Intervention Services, Mrs. Kelsey Carter, the district's military community liaison, Dr. Helen Grant, Richland 2's Chief Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Officer, and Mrs. Quinn Evans, Director of Richland 2's Center for Child Development. So I think you guys know where this might be, right? The state capitol. We took a trip there in 2018 for the first ever Kinship Care Day at the Capitol. We got on a bus and we rode down to the State House with 21 kinship caregivers and had a wonderful time. This event was intended to raise awareness about kinship care as well as recognize and show appreciation for kinship caregivers throughout the state of South Carolina. And the next slide illustrates the large number of kinship families at the event. We had the largest group there, and you can see that, yeah, we love that picture. 2009 Kinship Care Day at the Capitol was a very special one for us as well. We once again traveled to the Capitol, where one of our very own kinship caregivers, who is here tonight, Mrs. Cheryl Nettles, was invited to tell the story of her kinship journey, which she did so well.
So on this next slide, here you'll see where we have a range of different ages that our current caregivers who are a part of our group, these are the age ranges of children that they're caring for. So although, as Wendy said earlier, although kinship care support encompasses adults of all ages, many of them really are grandparents, and these grandparents are raising their grandchildren, their young grandchildren, and this is typically an age that would typically be their golden years, but they're caring for young children. So as you can imagine, it takes a village. So that village includes every single one of us who are here tonight. So this slide, it really highlights and kind of outlines how we all as a community, how we all as a district can best support our kinship caregivers and their children and their families. And it starts from registration, from the time that they register their children in school. There are things that could be done to better support them. It goes down to learning support and the direct services that could be provided to students and their caregivers in each and every single school. Same thing for school administrators and staff. You know, they could do a really great job, we all do, of raising awareness within each of our individual schools about the unique needs of kinship children as well as their caregivers. And we're also including each one of you, board members, as well as district officials. You all can play a huge part in raising the awareness within your professional circles as well as in the community. So we would like to say thank you again. Wendy and I would like to say thank you for your support. And we greatly appreciate the opportunity to have us here tonight to highlight our kinship care families and the students in our community. If you have any, Wendy and I will be happy to take any questions that you may have for us tonight.
Mr. Manning?
Yes, ma'am. And one thing before I go to Dr. Scott and then work my way around, can you send us some, or send to Christine and then get us some digital material, so if we want to share it on Facebook or other social media platforms, it would make it easy for us?
Sure.
Thank you. Dr. Scott?
I just want to say thank you so much for this presentation, Wendy. As you can recall, many years ago, I used to come and support the meetings with you guys and really enjoy. I see some of the grandparents like, yes, and really enjoyed my time there. So thank you for holding me accountable and reminding me that I need to get back involved, because I truly, truly enjoyed coming to those meetings and providing refreshments. So hold me accountable and make me get back to those meetings. Grandparents, I see you guys. It's so good to see you guys again. And you'll see me soon, because I truly enjoyed those meetings. So thank you so much.
Okay, we'll send you the dates. We can
Dr.
send
Holmes?
everybody if you're interested.
I'm so impressed with this program. I am such a girl's girl, women's women kind of person. So I know that this is very much needed. This is very much needed. And I applaud all of you out there who are holding it down, because I was once a divorced mother with 2 children by myself, working 2 jobs and going to school at night. I get it. I understand what you're doing, and I'm here now. So I'm all in. I'm going to support this. I'm going to help you all. I'll come talk. I'll come do whatever you need me to do. I'll donate, because this is very important, because the bottom line is that we have to help each other, because we are a community, and the least of us makes up that suffering that holds the whole community down. So I just want to tell you, ladies, and if there's any men involved, I am coming. Just let me know, because this is important, and I'm really there for you. So congratulations on what you're doing, and I promise you I'm going to be there.
Thank you.
Ms. Mackey?
Yeah, thank you all for presenting this evening. I think Kelsey has actually mentioned the kinship care group, support group to me before. When we talk about diversity and equity in the district, it's not just, your skin color, socioeconomic status, your learning styles, but the way your house is situated and your home is situated. So I just appreciate the wraparound services that you have available for students and families who need it with regard to diversity and equity and embracing each child and each family where they are. I appreciate what you're doing. Thank you so much for sharing with us. Bless y'all for being here. Bless you.
Dr. Davis?
I will be remiss if I didn't say thank you. We had a chance to chat at your last meeting and a couple years back virtually. And to the grandparents that are here, it's great to see you all again. And I just want to remind you, as I shared with you before, to keep loving those grandchildren, those aunts, those nieces and nephews. I was raised by my grandmother from the age of 2 until I moved out on my very own. and you never know who he or she's going to become, who you're raising. They don't always show you that they appreciate that love, but they do, and the lessons that they learn. And I just will continue to keep you all to my thoughts and prayers, continue to support you, continue to be there for you as best I can. So thank you all for that commitment to being a part of the village of our school district for your grandkids. And thank you all for your support and organization of this. And to Quinn, again, thank you for always keeping me involved in this as well. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. It's I want to say it's refreshing to see something that we can all universally get behind and support. So I think that's a great opener for this meeting. Christine, thank you for getting that set up for us and set the tone for the rest of the evening. With that, we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance. All right, if I can have approval of the agenda, motion.
Mr. Chair,
Ms. Mackey.
move to approve the agenda for the September 13th, 2022 regular board meeting.
Motion made by Ms. Mackey. Do I have a second? Seconded by Dr. Caution Parker. Any discussion? With no discussion, we'll have the vote. Motion passes 6 yes, 1 no. We'll now move on to the consent agenda. If I can have a motion.
Mr. Chair,
Ms. Mackey.
move to approve the consent agenda for the September 13th, 2022 regular board meeting.
Motion made by Ms. Mackey. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Dr. Holmes. Is there any discussion? With no discussion, we'll take the vote. Motion passes unanimous. We'll now move on to public participation. Before we start that, it's that time of year with elections when we need to send out or remind some folks of some of the rules. So before I introduce our first speaker for public participation tonight, I need to share a clarification regarding comments that must be restricted due to board policy and state law. Board policy prohibits campaigning on district property, with exceptions for all candidate forums for educational purposes or when space has been rented for use after school hours. Additionally, South Carolina state law provides that no person may use public government property or office buildings in an election campaign or to influence the outcome of an election. Therefore, citizens speaking during public participation should refrain from making campaign statements. District administrators requested clarification from officials after receiving a question about comments made during public participation made at past board meetings. So please, if you will adhere to those rules.
Point of personal preference?
Yes, ma'am.
I would like to say something.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm just going to read from what I wrote so I don't get off script. I want to let the public know that last night on WIS-TV, Judy Gatson inaccurately reported that there were 3 seats open for Richland 2 school board election on November the 8th. That information is false.
You can't do that. This is, we're not here for campaign.
I'm not campaigning. I'm just saying, I'm just letting the public know that there's actually 4 seats open for election this cycle. I want the citizens of Richland County School District 2 to know the truth and how many votes they have for school board seats. I would like to request that WIS-TV have Ms. Judy Gatson recant her
Out of order,
inaccurate
Mr. Chair.
statement to ensure that voters are receiving correct information this
It's-
election cycle, that there is one incumbent, but there are 4 seats open, not 3.
Okay. Tyler Swain Mitchell, if you please come forward.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
To the Richland School District 2 board members, Dr. Davis, my name is Tyler Sway Mitchell. I'm a product of Richland School District 2, and right now, a school-based substitute teacher at Joseph Kills Elementary. I want to talk to you tonight about the importance and challenges of inspiring students as a substitute teacher. I learned quickly that I must be willing to focus on the interaction, the relationship, and the dialogue between substitute and student. I learned, above all, that I must focus on the needs of young boys and girls and clearly show that I am there to help them every day. I want to show that I am a servant leader. That means I bring humility, authenticity, and stewardship to their classrooms. I need to learn and develop myself as well as support and inspire them to make sure they become the best that they can possibly be. As a substitute teacher, I want to project optimism about learning, to be honest and learn to problem solve despite challenging circumstances. My obligation to these young people is to be genuine, true to who I am and to who God has planned for my life. I want to secure my legacy by building positive engagements with the next generation of leaders. In turn, I want them to pay it forward to their younger school friends, and as we continue to grow in every aspect of our lives. I want to make sure that important problems are addressed and solutions are provided. I ask you, as the board, to make sure that every provision possible to attract and retain and elevate our present and our future generation of substitute teachers. I want to put to practical use the quality of education that I have received and make sure others have an equal and indeed better education. Substitute teachers have an even more challenging role in replacing often temporarily those teachers whose pupils already know. This is not only an obligation for me, it is a moral imperative for our school district and for our state. I yield my time, sir.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Appreciate
Yep,
it.
thank you. Yeah, I wish I had a deep voice like that. I appreciate it.
No problem, sir. Thank you very much.
Yep. William Patrick.
Ready?
Yes, sir, go ahead. Yep.
Hi. Good evening. I just want to bring to your attention my total dissatisfaction with the process of discipline in this district. I'm appalled by the things that I've learned in this last year. I've lived here for 25 years. I've raised kids in this district and now grandkids in this district. I'm appalled by what I see on WIS about the board's treatment of each other. I wouldn't want to bring my child in here to watch you sometimes cut each other off, overtalk each other. The stuff we see on the news about how you treat each other, I don't know why I should expect you to treat our children any better, because you don't. So the problem that I see with the policy is when a child is disciplined, I'm not discussing should they be disciplined. I'm discussing on the level of discipline that you, the board, put on these children. Some is appropriate, many are not. We know there are problems with kids. We know there are problems in schools in a district this size. I'm asking you to take into consideration a child. There are several places on your own website that talks about putting children first and how much you care for kids. My daughter and I have reached out to many of you board members. I've talked directly with Dr. Davis, who, although very empathetic, simply said he can't overrule the board, so you are the people that I'm addressing. There's one other person, Mr. Cleveland back here, who at least showed us some empathy and concern for our child. None of the board members did. I'm very upset over the disciplinary level that you put on children. if you don't take a child into consideration, and all you do is go by what you say to me is, I'm simply following the district policies, and then when we object to that, our only course of action is the appeals process, which you do behind the wall. We don't even know if you saw the appeal. We issued you a 10-page appeal. When did you get it? I don't know. Did you read it? I don't know. All I know is you came out here and voted on 6 appeals that day and denied every one of them. I don't even know which one is ours because you do everything in secret. That's not fair to us. That's not fair to the children because you do everything in executive session. Then when I talk to Dr. Davis, he's very empathetic and I appreciate his time. He doesn't have anything to do with the board and can't override the board. So we have absolutely no recourse. Once a hearing happens, all recourse we have is to submit an appeal. We submit a 10-page appeal. We don't know if it's read, but then we have no other recourse after that, other than to just accept what you say is in the best interest of a child, not all children, a child. We were told directly by the hearing officer that we don't take into consideration, is a child good, bad? Has he had disciplinary problems before? Is he a problem? Is there any other things that this child has done in the past? We're just going to take everybody in the boat and then have to listen to what y'all say.
Your time is up, please. Thank you very much.
You. I hope you're all voted out, and I hope we replace every one
Thank
of
you, Mr. Patrick. Mr. Patrick.
You're either the problem or you're allowing the problem.
Security, can we please have Mr. Patrick to the back of the room? Mr. Patrick, please respect Mr. Patrick. If I can have Julie Patrick please come forward. I'd have to go back and look.
Good evening. I'm Julie Patrick. I am the daughter of that gentleman who just spoke on behalf of my daughter who is also going to speak tonight. We are all appalled at the process that has occurred here, the reasoning of why my child was sent to Blythewood Academy with no evidence of situations that have occurred. While I have no opportunity to overturn a decision that was made, we decided we would suck it up and try and make the best of it. So my daughter is in Blythewood Academy right now. And I'm not new here, like my father said. I've graduated from Richland too, so this is not new to me. Blythewood is not new to me. I'm very aware. My daughter is experiencing a very toxic and dangerous environment. We have known gang members, violent offenders, kids who have been to jail. I'm not saying every person in Blythewood is a bad person, but I can guarantee you that majority of them are. This seems to be the place where we just unload the children who don't deserve to be or have committed offenses that shouldn't be left at their normal schools, which I understand they have to go somewhere because we can't have any child left behind. But unfortunately, my child is dealing with violent people, fights, witnessing things, hearing negative talk about violent acts that have been committed. And then on top of those things, which is already bad enough for any student to have to deal with, we're talking about kids who freely and normally have foul language, which is just normal for how they act and interact with each other, but also teachers who are voluntarily participating in negative and foul language in the classrooms, with each other, with the students, directly to my child, on a regular basis. So this is not new. We're talking teachers who have been there for years, teachers who have admitted to my child that they were injured by other students in previous years. And it just seems to be the very normal environment that is going on at Blythewood Academy. It may not have always been that way, but it certainly is right now. So while I have spoken and emailed those things to the board, I was able to speak with Dr. Davis in person, which, everybody has said, yes, we'll investigate these items, which totally needs to happen. But in the meantime, my child who was sent there falsely and should not have been sent there by all means, is now being forced to stay in an environment that is dangerous, Kids are bringing items into the school that are prohibited, getting through the metal detectors. What's to say one day, one kid who says, I get away with it all the time, bringing my cell phone and my vape pens and all this through the metal detectors, that I'm not going to bring a gun to school. Kids who have brought guns to school, kids who have brought bullets to school, kids who have made bomb threats to their schools. These are the things that my child is hearing every day. And that's not how she was raised. That's not who we are as people. That's not how my family is. And for a child to be terrified and scared to go to school every day, who once loved going
Ms.
to
Patrick,
school.
I'm sorry, your time is up.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Patrick. If I can have Gary Ginn come forward, please.
I want to thank y'all, board, for your time and giving me the opportunity to speak. It falls heavy on my heart that we have so many good people in this school district. So few good many people on this board, people that want to be false and tell not the truth, people that put people in Blythewood Middle School, or Blythewood, whatever it is. People that have to kids that have to go to school and be aware of people that might bring a gun to school, and we don't know about knives and whatever else they might bring to school today. And basically all this is started by a lot of the people on this board that fight amongst themselves, curse words to parents, curse words to themselves. You ought to be ashamed. All of you. We have a superintendent that attacks parents in the boardroom. We have a wife of the superintendent that uses curse words to a 14-year-old. It's totally uncalled for. I'm sorry to say it, but I'm ashamed. I've been ashamed for a long time. And you know, we have a chairman, an ex-chairman of this board, that would not give us time to speak because she had to overrule what we were saying. It was wrong. Well, you know what? The First Amendment comes into play with that because we all have a First Amendment right to wherever we like it or not. We all can say what we can. People don't like what I say. But you know what? I think I tell the truth to say that, yes, y'all are an embarrassment to all of us. Parents, teachers, taxpayers, community leaders, and why should we continue? Why should we continue with a superintendent that attacks, physically attacks, and comes after a parent? Why should we keep on with a school teacher that's supposedly teaching school that will use obscenity and curse words at a 14-year-old student? You know what? Like the previous speaker said, good riddance.
We next have Jasmine Patrick.
Hello.
Hello.
I'm here to basically say how I'm not safe at my school. I have an entire page here of what I've heard people say, teachers, students, everything. I even had a teacher at my school who I don't even have as a teacher come into my class and curse out 3 students using the S word multiple over 6 times in 1 minute. And they're using slurs in my class, not like just like the F slur, all of that stuff. I don't get it, why the teachers don't say, hey, stop. They'll be like, calm down. And then I've had teachers say, if a school shooter comes in the school, I'm not gonna protect you, so every man for themselves, use another student as a human shield. I've had teachers say that there is black mold under the carpets, and last year they took them out and did nothing about the black mold. I've had, just last week, a student got jumped in the bathroom and walked out covered in blood. My teacher is using the F word over multiple occasions, saying that a person has broken her own foot, the middle schoolers have put the fire alarm off last year, and the SRO did nothing about it and locked the students and the teachers inside of the school while the fire alarm, she's prone to seizures, so she had to leave for our fire alarm, and they beat her up while the fire alarm was going off. People are vaping and bringing phones into schools, past the metal detectors, wearing hoodies, which they're not supposed to. A kid is there because he threatened to bomb a school. Just today, a guy pointed his fingers like this and shot like that at my head just because I took my charger back after he left the class. Today, the same kid said that he was coked up before school. People are there for assault and battery and on school grounds with a firearm. Teachers are using curse words. The teacher who came into our class and threatened those students called the teacher again and said, "My reach is not as far as you think, it is longer." The same exact teacher today, I heard in the hall say something, "Man, you got T's as breasts." Everybody is talking about gang affiliation. There are multiple gangs all clumping together that can fill 2 tables worth of people and circle this one person and is
Jasmine, we messed up on the time, so I don't know whether it's 3 minutes or not. I'm going to give you just another few seconds to wrap up, if that's okay.
Okay.
And then we'll end your time.
Thank you. They are circling like about 6 kids at lunch, just 6 kids going to them and are trying to beat them up. People are like forcing them out of the lunchrooms just so they don't have to deal with it. They are...
Jasmine, I'm going to use that as your break.
Okay.
Thank you very much for coming in front of us. Mr. Gus Philpott, if you could please come forward.
Good evening, I'm Gus Philpott. I want to comment on my tie, police line, do not cross. I wear this tie in memory of Earl Room. He was an educator in Denver, teacher, counselor, motivational speaker, and I don't know that he was at Columbine when Columbine happened in 1999, but he was deeply affected by it. I'm not going to talk about crime tonight, and the district, I hope, is addressing that. Can't really tell. But what I am going to ask you to think about tonight are these key words: ethics, integrity, honesty, responsibility, fiduciary duty, responsible use of public money, being good stewards of public money, and then breach of fiduciary duty. Last weekend, some board members were in Atlanta for a conference of the Consortium of State School Boards Association. 3 were there, 2 of whom are not going to be here in November. So I question why Richland 2 is spending money, maybe $1,500 to $2,000 each, to allow a board member to go to a conference when the district will get no value whatsoever from anything that they might learn there. And then in 2 weeks, there's a conference in Miami. The National Association of School Boards Association is having a meeting in Miami on September 29th to October 1st. That one's a little more expensive, and it's a little farther away. So maybe the cost will be $3,000 to $3,500 to $4,000 per trustee who goes. And I ask, why are 2 sitting trustees going to those meetings and spending district money when come November 8th, they won't be here? Well, it's actually a week later. Their terms end a week later. And I ask the district to address that and to seek the cooperation of those trustees so that they do not go and do not waste district money. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Philpott. Next, I have Terrence Staley.
I'm going to be very short. First of all, my name is Terrence Staley, and I'm a retired military guy with 28 years. But the main thing is, since I've been back here in Columbia, I spent the last decade in the Pentagon, part of domestic operations with the Joint Staff. Our role, of course, was to defend the homeland. And so I spent over a decade training and using the Congress funds to make sure that our CSTs, which were civil support teams, HERFs, Homeland Response Force, and other important elements to make sure that we all were able to wake up every morning, dress up, come to our schools, and visit our kids every day. I've listened. I've heard a lot of things. One of the most important things that I can share with you is the fact that I feel security for these young people have to be a priority. We've got to protect these young people, and I feel if I'm here, one of my responsibilities is to make sure that every young person who leaves home in the morning and approaches and comes in school will be safe. I have 2 grandchildren myself. And they know exactly what I did. They know exactly what I spent 28 years doing. And my kids, who are all grown and out on their own, very successful, but they thank me every day for protecting them. And my wife, the same. There's nothing that we can't do and we can't accomplish. And I'm saying that because I've seen it. I've experienced it. I share with Mr. Potts back there that someone said there's always a racial tension, there's always race involved in something. I'm going to share this with you. I commanded a battalion which has over 1,500 people. I had 42 officers under me, not one minority. So they took and followed me, maybe because I was a lieutenant colonel. I don't think that was so. I think they followed me because I gained the respect. I had great leadership. 42 white officers followed a black lieutenant colonel. Other than that, I just thank you for letting me come and share with you. And I think this board
Thank you, Mr.
has to do
Staley.
your job.
Thank you, sir. We will next move on to item 7.1, student appeals. If I can please have a motion.
Mr. Chair,
Dr. Caution Parker.
I move to deny the appeal.
Second.
Motion made by Dr. Caution Parker, seconded by Ms. Mackey. Is there any discussion?
Mr. Chair,
Ms. Agostini?
I'm going to abstain from this vote due to concerns of whether or not the student and the family received due process, in my opinion. Thank you.
Any other comments, board members? All right, we'll now take the vote at this time. Motion passes 4 yes, 2 no, and 1 abstention. There's no other items in executive session. We will now move on to the board self-evaluation. If I can have Mr. Tony Asari please come forward. Arasi.
Good evening, and thank you. Looking forward to spending time with you. My name is Tony Arasi. I'm a consultant with the Georgia School Boards Association. The South Carolina School Boards Association, which you are members, has been doing a self-assessment with you for a number of years. Due to staff commitments, they asked me if I would take the results after they launched the instrument and lead a discussion with you this evening. It'll be about an hour-long discussion. Normally, we might take a longer amount of time, but you have quite a packed agenda, and we've got a plan in which to try to discuss topics that might be of interest and of benefit to you as a board. Just real quickly, I mentioned to you I work with the Georgia School Board Association. I've worked with South Carolina School Board Association a few times, including presenting at conferences and doing some other work. Formerly, before I started working with GSBA, I was a school person. I was a teacher. I was a high school principal in the district, Cobb County Schools, which is outside of Atlanta, 100,000 students. I was a principal for 10 years at 2 different high schools, one 1,000 students, one 2,700 students. And then I was associate superintendent for 10 years, working on the superintendent's cabinet. And so as I work with boards, I try to bring some administrative experience where appropriate, along with working with school boards for the past 20 years. As mentioned, the South Carolina School Board Association sent the instrument to each of you. A number of you, each of you were able to participate and come up with give certain ratings in certain areas. And many times, like most boards, they diverge quite a bit. And the most important thing is maybe you just take a look at that. Tonight, we'll share and talk about some of the things that are important in self-assessments and what can be taken away. That's the most important thing. What can you take away from the time we spend today and maybe looking at the instrument. I think it's important. I mentioned to you I was a high school principal. Being a principal, I didn't really work with the school board much. Like most principals, I was happy they approved the superintendent's recommendation and allowed me to be a principal of 2 great schools. I was always interested in the teacher allotments, how many teachers we got, and of course coaching supplements and things like that that many of you maybe hear some about as you talk with principals. It wasn't until I got to the central office working on the superintendent's cabinet that it really hit me and struck me the tough job that school board members have. As lay people who are to represent a very large community, your district's almost 30,000 students, forget the 100,000 in Cobb, that's mega big. You are a very large and a high-performing district. Does that mean that things are perfect? Absolutely not. There is no perfect school, no perfect district anywhere. And our business, like as much as any, is all about how can we do better, how can we get better, what did I learn today that might make me better in doing what I'm doing. And so, Usually when I work with boards, what I try to remind them is, I know every principal in your district, tomorrow you're expecting to support and help teachers and work with kids, the most important element in our school district. And each year, each month, each week, you probably have an expectation. I hope the teachers are improving. I hope the assistant principals are improving. I hope the principals are improving. And that is absolutely valid and the way a board member should be. But as leaders of the district, it's real important that you, as the leaders of the district, also look at how can we do better? How can we work together better as a team to support our CEO, the superintendent? Because the better you do in the leadership role, the better position the superintendent's in, and that filters down to principals and teachers, and in the end, most important, the kids. Also, as I work with boards, before we go into some specific areas, one of the things I've found in doing this for 20 years is sometimes boards will focus on maybe what they don't agree on. And once in a while, and that's like any leadership group in any company probably, sometime as you're working in a high-powered environment, and you deal with people's kids and their tax dollars. There's no more high-powered position, okay? But sometimes it's easy and we forget, and I know even us leaders did. I remember in working in the central office, we sometimes get a little off track in that we're focused on maybe what we're not doing and agreeing on versus what we do. I'm going to guess each and every one of you in here wants the best for kids and hope that when they come out of your school system, they're better socially, academically. I'm sure you want them safe on their way to school, nurtured and taken care of at school, and home safely. And then let's do it again and better the next day. That was our job at the schools. That's the central office right here, their job in supporting the schools. And again, the more cohesive and the better you work as a team, that will impact your superintendent, them, and those in the schools. So wanted to frame that as we briefly review this. And again, I want you to take the instrument and look at it after our time together this evening and see where you and your teammates can maybe try to make things a little bit better. And again, it's not easy being a school board, not easy being a superintendent. All of you are passionate and you have different backgrounds and you have different reasons maybe why you ran for the board, but you got one job on the board. That's to make sure the teachers are in a position to help the kids and the support of administration in doing that. One of my favorite things besides working with the school boards is doing administrative and working with some districts on helping and grooming and working with administrators. You are board members, he's a superintendent, their central office staff, their parents at the toughest time it's ever been with kids in school because all of we've dealt with. But it is what it is. And the better we work together, the better we try to find common ground, even though we will not always agree, the better our chances for success. So looking at the instrument, just some of the big bucket areas, one of the first ones is board leadership. And the very first bullet there, the board places children's need ahead of the personal or political gain. Okay? That's pretty clear, pretty simple, not always easy to do, but something that boards need to try, if they can, best they can, to focus on. Board make decisions on what's best for all children, and that's always a tough one, especially in a large district. I remember working with our board, and your staff probably does with you, where on a board agenda you might be helping these schools for these reasons this time, but maybe you don't have the finances and other reasons you can't help everybody the same way. Doesn't work that way. But long range, trying to look at all the students. And again, if any of these areas, as I go through the big buckets, you want to throw out, I'd love to have some of you comment, ask questions, or just state your case. This is a great opportunity for that. We'd love to get any input, feedback, or thoughts that you may have. This is not easy work. Okay? It will never be easy work. But if we want the schools to do better, what could we at the leadership level, the people in this building, do better? Second area is vision. This talks about having clear priorities with district goals. You know, a lot of districts talk about strategies and stuff, but remember, hope is not a strategy. Hope is not a strategy. Strategic thinking is looking at what you have, what you need to do, what are your resources, and how to best do that. And that's great we have hope, but there's got to be more to it. Otherwise, it's not going to get down to the classroom level where the important work occurs. Okay? The board ensures that rules, roles, relationships, responsibilities needed to realize the vision are in place. That's about trying to work together as a team. Doesn't mean you have to agree with everything. Doesn't mean you're going to have to agree with the superintendent. And there's a lot of people that want superintendent jobs, but once they get in the chair, they realize they have 5, 6, 7 bosses. Our largest board, right across the border here on 20, in Augusta, Georgia, our largest board in Georgia has 10 board members, okay? I know, I saw some oohs and ahs there, okay? But the bottom line is, so very difficult sometimes for superintendents to get an idea if I and the staff and the schools are going to forge ahead in the toughest time ever in education. What's my direction from the board? And that's why it's important that, yes, we may not always agree, but keep coming back to what do we want and what do we agree on. Questions, comments? You know, Superintendent, that was a great presentation here, the grandparents, and I was taken by what the superintendent said about, you know, grandmother raising him, you know, and not knowing where that was going to go. I'm not sure if his grandma's alive now, but look at the seat you're sitting in. But ladies and gentlemen, in most districts, and you've got them too, some kids, through parent support, church, and they have a village helping them. But every district, and you've got them, has some kids that you are their only hope. You are their only hope. I'm not sure superintendents, grandmothers, if she had wealth, fame, I do not know that. But in many of the cases, we've got kids in school with a parent sometimes or grandparent working 2, 3 jobs. And if they wanted to, they didn't have time to try to help the kid at school. They're hoping and praying when the kid gets on the bus that day that the school district does a good job of it. And you've got many success stories, and I know many of you if you like board members everywhere, try to go to some of the graduations. And that's where you really see and hear some tremendous stories. Do.
And Tony, I would say the score being what it is, and I think often we get kind of bogged down in how we get to some of the goals that we have and the
Right.
vision that we have. But I would say this board is universal in that we do want students to be safe. We want them to be successful. Every student to be successful in our school district. And we do think that public education is important in our community. I think those are things, kind of base fundamentals that we all agree
Good.
on. Just sometimes how we get there may be different, but I think we
Right.
agree to those things.
Yeah, and remember the direction you want the district to go to, and that was a great point by the chair, is you may not agree on the how, and a lot of that should be on the superintendent and the staff. And that's part of the evaluation process. And that's part of the goal setting for the next year. Hey, we think we did well here, but maybe next year we could focus on this and this. So good comments. Then, of course, fiscal management. And understand that I think you won an award somewhere recently for that, and that's great because, like I said, you're dealing with people's kids and their tax dollars. And sometimes when you throw a budget figure out, people might say, well, gee, what are they doing with all that money? And I think I found out your budget was $300 million plus, okay?
320, yeah, close
Okay,
enough.
okay? But the typical person doesn't know that probably 85 to 95% of that is personnel alone. That's just the people working. Then you have other things like utilities and some other costs. The truth is many people, I've seen this everywhere, particularly if the district's fairly large and the budget number sounds high. My home district, Cobb, where I worked and live, our budget was $900 million. So that makes yours seem small, and it is relative to some of those districts. But the truth is, the wiggle room you have each year in your budget is not nearly as much as the typical person might think. Does that make sense? And I think part of your job should be, and I always encourage boards when we talk about fiscal management, is make sure you educate the public on that. A lot of the public may not know that actually it's our people in the district that are the major cost. But you obviously do a good job in accounting for the money, in keeping the community informed and so forth. And there'll never be enough for most citizens to go around. That's totally understandable. That's part of the tough job you have working with the superintendent and the finance director on each year as you develop your budgets. Any comments or questions on that? Any thoughts from any of you board members on the challenges of that or things you hear in the community? Okay. Now we go to accountability and instruction, which is really what everything's about. I mean, that's what it really is about. The board ensures that the district sets high standards and measures achievement. And one of the challenges we have, and we've seen this across the country as we work with NSBA and now we'll be working with COSBA, at least our state, yours, but as we've networked with others, is it's easy for a board to raise the bar. And that sounds good on the campaign trail. The hard part when you raise the bar is lifting the kids over the bar. Because not every kid, some kids will jump it in a second. And some will take time, effort, extra people, and so forth. You know, our business is just not like some. Our students are our lifeblood, but they come in different ways. And so that's something that districts that look at student achievement make sure that as they raise expectations and rigor, it is appropriate to the resources, and depending on the student population and the programs in the schools, fits that. So everybody has a chance to get over the bar, but we might need different things for that.
And Tony, I want to,
Yeah,
I
please.
want to brag on us as a district
Sure.
in that area. I think the equity and making sure that we provide opportunities for all of our students. It doesn't mean the same, but that it's equitable for our students to give them those opportunities, again, has been an administrative and a board priority. And I think we put a lot of time and effort into to working with that with all of our students. And having been to that COSBA conference this weekend, it's amazing. You know, I think we forget the work that we've done to accomplish that. Dr. Davis, they were talking about students' access to AP, and you've been working to get students into AP programs that traditionally may not have been either looked at for that, or the students didn't believe they could do it, but we've been working to get them involved. Just one of many, many initiatives. So that is an area where we've put a lot of effort, and I think we've done a great job of making progress. You're never done, but making progress.
That's great, and that's a great point. And yes, people confuse equal with equity, okay? Some kids need, equity is giving some kids more that they need to get over the bar, versus if you did, we're going to treat kids equally, that's not going to get that kid over the bar. And I know you guys do a great job with your student population. You probably deal with every academic challenge that there is out there. Okay, just looking at that number of populations, and your district is a high-performing one. But again, what can you do to make it better? What can you do in this room? What can they do? Folks in the schools. And again, we'll not always have people agree with us. You know, I remember being a principal, and first year or so, I loved it when people said things were going really well and you're good. I said, man, I like this. And then when someone would criticize me, you know, I wanted to go cry in the corner. And maybe I did, but I won't admit it tonight. But in the end, I realized not too long after that, you know what? Sometimes our critics are right, depending on the circumstances. And look at what you're dealing with, and then try to, you know, process that. You know, and what can I learn from that? Then board community, you know, you represent the community. It's one of the hardest things to do, is trying to represent the handful of you, the number of people in your communities, but you chose to run. You took the oath, and till that last day, you know, need to do the very, very best, you can. And again, in dealing with the community, that's why I brought up the critics are sometimes right, depending on circumstances. It's important we at least be good listeners and value people, okay, and giving them that opportunity. Comments, questions on that? Any of you board members, when you took the oath and you got in the community, was it easy sometimes when somebody might, you know, criticize you, seeing you at church or at the store? Anybody want to comment on that? How you handled it?
I think one of the first things to realize is, regardless of the vantage point from which you came in the community regarding community advocacy, volunteerism, or whatever capacity you served in the community, serving on the board, you have a different perspective, a different vantage point. You're provided different information that the general public is not always privy to, and our roles are different. You know, as board members, we have one employee, the superintendent, and so oftentimes our roles are different as board members, and we learn that when we become new board members and go through board member orientation. So that is a big deal, regardless of how passionate I am with regard to community advocacy. As board members, we have clear and distinct roles.
Very good. Great. Anybody else? I know when we do our new board orientation, usually the new board members will tell us that the first thing they noticed is when they went to the grocery store or a ball game or a church, when people wanting something. That comes with the territory, and that's where you need to early on develop that filter of being a good listener. You know, God gave us 2 ears, 1 mouth for a reason. And just being careful that you being a good listener, they don't take as, oh, Tony's going to take care of it. He gave me the thumbs up, okay? And that's really, really important, because that will then maybe bring more business to you if the word gets out. I'll talk to Tony at church. After he prays, he's a softie, okay? But the truth is also then that also can diminish the role and responsibility of your fellow board members who are, hey, that's the superintendent's job. And then, of course, the superintendent. So, you know, just little things like that all of a sudden, and it doesn't have to just be a new board member. It can be a sitting board member. And it's really, really careful that you don't make it sound like you're the superintendent, you're the fixer. I'm the listener, and our protocol is, and different districts have it different things. If parent has an issue with the bus, some districts tell the board member to say, why don't you tell them to call transportation? Or usually an issue with the school, they need to go back to the school. But different districts handle it differently. It's not easy. It's not easy. It's really hard when it's maybe a personal friend of yours. We've had board members in these tiny towns say, oh yeah, when somebody wants something, they come up to me and they say, you know, I voted for you and I sent you $25 for your campaign. I need a favor. And real easy on, you know, real early on, you know, you've just got to get that filter. We've had some board members even say, you know, when am I not a board member? The answer is never, until you no longer serve it. Okay? Community relations. Anything else? And always remember, too, a lot of the times, as you hear from community members about issues, always need to be good listeners and, you know, process, hey, what did I hear? Where does this go? And usually it's to the superintendent. But you also don't hear from a lot of people. Okay? Okay? And there are also some good things going on, because it's real easy to get burnt out. I can tell you in the principal's office, normally I was dealing with a teacher that needed something or an issue, parent, kid, and I learned real quick that you can't just think that what your day was filled up taking care of, and some of you maybe are on the phone or you email or you talk to somebody, that's everything going on in the district. That does not diminish the issue that just came to you in an email or somebody talked to you about, but you also have to look at the big picture too. Okay? Anything else on community? Meetings of the board. Okay? This is one of the nicer board setups I've ever seen, by the way. I just thought I'd tell you. But folks, this is where you do your business. Technically, this is really the only where really a board member has power. It's when you vote on recommendations from the superintendent or do other business Sometimes you have to, due to open records, due to open meetings, and having to go into executive session with some of the land legal student issues. But the truth is, this is where people see what you do. And sometimes people say, well, the board hasn't done any. We'll get a call sometimes. We're not the board police, okay, nor is your association. They do a great job. They're to help and support. But people will go, well, our board hasn't done anything this year. So, well, do me a favor, why don't you pull up their monthly agendas? And people will say, what's a monthly agenda? Well, board meetings sometimes aren't the most exciting things to go to, okay? Particularly if it's a kind of a vanilla, you're purchasing paper products or something really exciting like that. But that's school business. It's got to take care of. That has to do with kids' cleanliness and climate and all that. You know that. Typical person may not. But this is where you do your business, okay? Officially, and it's important how you look, how you act, and most important, what's the work that's getting done? What's the work that's getting done? Anything else on board meetings? Okay. Relationship with the superintendent. Maybe the most important thing for success or failure in the school business, particularly at this level, the governance level, that's the board and the superintendent, is the working relationship between superintendent and the board. And it's a two-way. It's a two-way, okay? You don't have to necessarily agree with everything, but the truth is, you got a CEO that is working for, like I said, some boards 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And how do they process what's the board really want me to do? And we know not every vote is going to be unanimous, but the discussion, the questions that come up on agenda items, it's really, really important that you be open and honest about issues. But it's important for the superintendent to know if there's an issue with something, it's an issue for you and what it is, so maybe he or she can address it, okay? And sometimes we have, once in a while, we don't want a board member, I'm not going to tell them what I'm upset about. Well, what does that really do? What does that accomplish? What does that serve? One of the items there was the board immediately discusses matters likely to alienate board members or superintendent. That can be a rub, and that's one of those things where you as a group collectively or individually might want to look at that. That serves nobody. And if you want that gentleman to take care of stuff, the best way to do it is to try not to put what might be a roadblock up, because the job is harder than ever before. And I mean it for you guys also. For you guys also. There's less, and I saw it on your survey on the back, you guys are concerned about the teacher shortage. Every district is, and you're a desirable district. You're a place a lot of people want to go. Now, if you're worried about it, imagine some other places that don't have your track record. Another area of concern is there are less people applying for superintendencies than there have been. We're seeing it in a number of states. And board service has gotten even harder, as we know. You've seen stuff on the news and day by day, So in the end, for the kids and the schools to prosper, it behooves us at the leadership level, that's folks here, governance level, filter down to the schools to figure out we're in the toughest time ever. We've got to be the best ever. I'm going to repeat that. These are the toughest times ever for the school business. The leaders have to be the best ever. That mean everybody's got to be a genius? No, it probably means we need to rely more on each other and try to help each other. And I'm talking all the leadership levels now, versus slow it down or I don't want to talk about that. Got to be very, very careful. And that's not to you. I'm preaching what I do almost any time I do these, because we can't do it good enough. We got to keep trying and keep trying.
And Tony, I want to say I appreciate your comment about superintendent stability. I think that makes a big difference. If we equate a little bit to the coaching world, unfortunately, we don't pay them $100 million like Dabo just got at Clemson for our superintendents. But I do think, just like in the coaching world, that consistency matters. For the average superintendent's 3 years, I think, in a big district like this. Maybe that number's starting to diminish down to 2.5 or something. But that turnover is very volatile, disruptive, and affects the students and the community in a deep-rooted way.
Great point. No, great point. The average, if you look, there's 15,000 school districts in America, and many of the states, the districts are by town, they're not by county, okay? So in some of the, like in Georgia, we have 180 districts, whereas in Texas, they have almost 1,000, because theirs are by cities and towns, not by counties. But the point I'm making is the average size district in America is about 3,000. You're 10 times bigger than that. So forget the mega-sized districts. You're huge compared to national districts and doing some great, great stuff. It's just, can you do even better stuff? Can you do even better stuff? Your kids deserve it. Your kids deserve it. Last, one more, anything else on Superintendent Relations Board? I can't emphasize enough. So again, it's a tough job having, at least Dabo Sweeney making all that money. He can tell the assistants what to do or change them, okay? Superintendents, they're sworn to work with the elected board that the community has elected them. And there's some great, great stuff being done, but there's no board, no district that shouldn't be looking at, could we do things a little better, a little differently, try to make things better for everyone. Finally, your policy making, and of course, just a reminder that we know you have a policy on doing the self-assessment, which is why I'm here. And I think that's good that you do it each year. We really do. And think that if you can utilize it, as I said, I know at the end of the year when the principals do the school improvement plans, you're hoping they're looking at how can we do it better. Well, what's your board improvement plan? Think about that. Even if you just look at it individually from, I was looking at that, could I do this a little better, that a little better? Do I need to do this and not that? And little by little, sometimes it's those small things that can make a big difference in terms of the interaction. Finally, there were a lot of comments at the end, and there was some disparity in opinions, which is fine. But the three things, and I agreed with them on, what are the three most important issues the board will face in the next 12 months? And immediacy is important. Certainly financial, always important that you look at ways to be a good steward of the taxpayers and continue to try to work best you can within those limits. And again, I would educate, if you haven't, and maybe you don't need to here, But in many districts, a lot of the community has no idea. Many of them think that a board takes a budget. Okay, we got 320 something million to spend this year. Let's go around the room and talk what we're going to do. Again, you got to have high quality staff. That's the most important thing in our business. And you got to make it a place that they want to work, they want to come to, and they want to stay. Because besides less people coming into teaching, some are retiring a little earlier than they used to. And in the end, that's going to impact where you're going to get your principals from, the teacher ranks. Where are your future superintendents going to come from? Now, you as a board may not face some of those things, but many of you who love and live in this great community will be here, and that might be your grandkids or others. Who's going to be leading? Who's going to be teaching? Who's going to be leading at the school level? Who's going to be sitting there? Who's going to be sitting there? And who's going to be sitting right there?
And to your point, administration has identified a goal of a 95% retention rate as one of the key priorities going into this year. And of course, the board has, not in an official manner, but we stand behind that, understanding that retention of staff at all levels is going to be the lifeblood, considering the difficulty in finding new staff. So,
good point.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's real, and it's everywhere. And again, don't know what your retiree rate, but even in some of the places where people stayed maybe longer than they would, we're starting to see in some of our districts where people are going a little earlier than they might have. And we're going to have to look at creative ways. We talked about the pandemic, the trickle down. You know, that's going to be with us a while, because it wasn't just the learning loss, but some of the younger kids who weren't even in school were impacted. Everybody was. And it impacted parents, some of their expectations. I lived near one of the high schools that I was principal of, and I go to the gym, and I have some former students now are there with kids. And a couple of them who were very great kids, but cocky as heck, very successful. They're making a good living, could not believe how hard teaching was when they had to stay home for 6 weeks. They could not, and they said, those are my kids. I really love them. I can spank them when they want. It was hard as, I won't say the word. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, can I ask you, I know we have your time, but if I can try to get us done with this part by 8, can you do 4 minutes to wrap the rest up?
Yeah, actually, I was going to leave you. What I want you to do is, I wanted to go over those sections where there were prompts for you.
Okay.
The notes, you can look at some of the other ones. The one I really wanted to emphasize, that one is what we're facing the next 12 months, the teacher shortage, the pandemic. And I'd be glad to answer any other questions, but I was going to try to wrap up by 8. Okay. Again, thank you for your service. You're doing it the toughest time anyone has, but so are the people in the schools. And with that and all that we have been through as adults, look how hard some of that was for us and our families and those we care about. We've never needed better, more cohesive leadership at the boardroom level, working with the superintendent in making good, strong decisions that will be impactful now and in the future, and will allow the superintendent to work with those folks and then filter down to leaders and teachers and kids in the school. If you wanted to make a difference in kids' lives, and that's why you ran, there's never been a better time to be on the board. I want you to think about that. if you really wanted to make a difference, there's never, now it's the toughest time, but it's the time to be most impactful. And that's a choice you will make. Every board meeting, every day, every year as you continue your work. I think you all hopefully ran for the right reasons. And now that you're in that seat, just think of the kids whose lives, we've got generational poverty in a lot of districts, and you've got some too. And I saw it as a principle. All you need, if you can get one kid, if you can get one of them, get them through school on the right track, it can change forever. Last thing I'll say was the superintendent was talking about his grandmother and not sure where he was going to end up. I'm sure she maybe wasn't neither. But the one thing we can never do is let a kid's zip code determine where they're going to be one day. And you can make the difference, folks. You in this room, working with them and the folks in the schools.
Thank you, Tony. Board members, any comments? Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Yeah, thank you for your work. All right, we will move on now to Dr. Davis. You have a presentation, your portfolio.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, members of the board, and to our guests here in person and watching online, thank you for the opportunity to share our highlights and an overview of the information compiled for the annual superintendent's evaluation. I think our last presenter really touched on some things, expressing that we had a phenomenal year last year in spite of many of the challenges that existed as a result of COVID. In today's time, at the start of the 2022-2023 school year, I think we have quickly forgotten how difficult and how challenging the 21-22 school year was as we started schools not in our traditional format. Before explaining the tool used for the superintendent's evaluation, I think it's important to reflect back on how we started the 21-22 school year by committing or recommitting ourselves to our core values of learning, character, community, and joy. The Richland 2 family is to be commended for showing up every day, determined to work, learn, and live in a premier way by first providing premier learning experiences, demonstrating premier character, investing in our community, and creating conditions where joy can reside. Last year, the pathway to premier was not an easy one. We faced roadblocks, detours, many distractions, and uphill challenges along the way. Despite this, the Richland 2 employees, students, parents, and other partners did their part to answer our essential question of how are the children, with a resolute answer that all the children are well. I want to express my deepest appreciation and gratitude to everyone who dedicated another year of their gifts and talents to supporting our mission and vision. Your efforts were recognized and acknowledged on the national level when Richland 2 was named the 2021 District of the Year by K-12 Dive, a national publication that provides in-depth journalism and insight into the most impactful news and trends shaping K-12 education. We also received another important confirmation of our success from Cognia. Maintaining accreditation is, of course, a district's priority every year, with an official accreditation review taking place every 5 years. Richland 2 completed the Cognia re-accreditation process in November of 2021. The district earned an overall index of education quality score of 340, which is about 57 points higher than the average score for Cognia improvement networks and institutions evaluated in the last 5 years, and that's internationally. Now let's talk a little bit about the evaluation tool. The criteria and rubric used for the Richland 2 superintendent's evaluation process comes from an exemplar published by the American Association of School Administrators. Similar to the district's accreditation review, the tool used for the superintendent's evaluation is structured around domains listed on this slide, as well as performance standards for each of the 6 domains. Prior to this meeting, I provided the board with a comprehensive portfolio documenting the performance in these areas. And tonight, I will just highlight a few and share some examples of each domain that were included in the entire portfolio. But this is just a sample. The performance standards for policy and governance includes developing and implementing policies for organizational expectations, functioning as a primary instructional leader, overseeing day-to-day operations, and collaborating to maintain a safe and productive schools. I want to take this opportunity to acknowledge the important contributions to the day-to-day operations of our school district by Richland 2 employees. I mentioned recently in our information session for board candidates that we are one of the largest operations in our county. We teach and feed more than 28,000 students 5 days a week for 180 days of a year, and providing transportation for part of that student body population. One of the ways I stay abreast of our day-to-day operations is through school visits. I visit each school a minimum of twice a year, trying to visit at least 4 to 5 classrooms per visit. The hard work and dedication of our employees always impresses me during these school visits. I want to thank our school board for collaborating with district administration for the review and adoption of policies. We had productive conversations around 16 policies and administrative rules that were revised or adopted. The Superintendent's Health Advisory Council also provided valuable feedback to us whenever we needed to update our COVID-19 health and safety protocols during the 21-22 school year. And I can't talk about collaboration for safe and productive schools without offering my personal thanks to the members of our Faculty Advisory Council, our Parent Advisory Council, Student Support Staff Advisory Council, NORMA, the Business Education Alliance, and the Student Advisory Councils for taking time to meet with me on a regular basis. Later in the presentation, I'll take a closer look at the evidence presented for instructional leadership that is mentioned here on this slide as well. Section A, Planning and Assessment. The Planning and Assessment domain centers around gathering and analyzing data for decision-making, strategic planning, enhancements for instructional programs, and the allocation of resources. This flow chart and graphic provides a great example of how data is analyzed to guide decision-making in the district. In this case, the data is used for enhancing teaching and learning. Prior to the pandemic, we were moving in the right direction in terms of student achievement. The pandemic interrupted the progress, but it did not completely derail the strategies and structures we have in place. So during the 2021 school year, we recommitted to strategies that informed instruction for improved achievement. These strategies included the district's instructional model and the benchmark assessment system. We celebrate and thank our Richland 2 teachers and school instructional leaders for their commitment to using data to enhance teaching and learning for our students. SC Ready and SC Pass data for the 21-22 school year show the proof and results of the hard work of our employees, students, and parents. In ELA and science, the district is at or above the state performance level. In math, the district is above the state in all but one grade level. In addition, for both science and ELA, Richland 2 has rebounded to pre-pandemic scores. For math, Richland 2 improved from last year and is close to pre-pandemic scores. This accomplishment is even more significant given that nationally schools are seeing declines due to the ongoing impact of the pandemic. Additionally, Richland 2, like other districts across the state, experienced high absences of both students and staff in 21-22 due to COVID quarantines and isolations, making these achievements even more impactful. Section L, instructional leadership. The policy and governance domains establish instructional leadership as a primary role of the superintendent. The instructional leadership domain delves into more specific criteria of this role to include communication of a clear vision for continuous improvement, alignment and coordination of teaching and learning, and recruiting, retaining, and supporting quality instructional and support personnel. Instructional leadership also encompasses serving as an agent of change to resolve problems and address factors that affect student achievement and innovating with technologies that maximize student learning. The chart on this slide and the next one comes from the Cognia Systems Accreditation Engagement Review that I included in the portfolio for demonstration of multiple domains and performance standards. Based on their assessment of a district, the Cognia team rates districts on their levels of impact, either as beginning in the first phase of initiating, second phase of improving, or third phase of impacting. Our accreditation report demonstrates that Richland 2 has implemented quality practices that are continuing to improve in the areas of defining beliefs about teaching and learning, as well as expectations for learners, demonstrating actions that ensure the achievement of our purpose and outcomes for learning, analyzing feedback from multiple partners to inform decision-making, and aligning the curriculum to standards and best practices. We are implementing or demonstrating noteworthy practices that produce clear results in our continuous improvement processes, adherences to policies, adjustments for instruction to meet students' needs, and/or assessments of programs. The 21-22 school marked a deep step forward in the district's effort in assessing and meeting students' needs with the administration of the Whole Child Survey, a survey that we're really very proud of creating here in Richland School District 2, which will help us with assessing our students' social-emotional wellness, understanding do they feel safe and supported in their schools among a myriad of factors, but something that is very important after COVID. For example, our schools combine the data with other sources of data to understand student needs more thoroughly and make sure that they were not missing students' needs. Schools planned individual student counseling and other interventions, and one school used the data with the SIC to help parents and school staff understand school-wide climate and cultural needs. Last year, we surveyed students in grades 4, 6, 7, and 9, and 10. This school year, all students in grades 3 through 12 will have the opportunity to complete the survey. Section M, organizational management. The organizational management domain lays out the expectations for supporting a safe and positive environment, developing procedures to work with the board, effectively managing resources, and demonstrating organizational skills to achieve goals. The importance of recruiting, retaining, and supporting and evaluating personnel is reflected in 3 performance standards for this domain. The team that reviewed our district for the Cognia accreditation noted in their report that Richland 2 practices wise stewardships of resources needed to support a high-quality learning environment. So when it comes to managing resources in order to meet our needs, I don't think you can find a better example than the projects recently completed as part of the bond referendum approved in 2018. As a reminder, the projects included in the strategic plan for our facilities address safety and security, academic learning spaces, transportation, technology, and arts and athletics. We started off the 21-22 year with the opening of competition stadiums at Richland Northeast High School and Ridgeview High. As the school year progressed, the renovations and additions at Blythewood High were wrapped up, and the end of the school year saw the rebuilding of Bethel Hanbury and Forest Lake Elementary Schools nearing the finish line. We've issued a little over $300 million of the $468 million authorized in the 2018 bond referendum, and we continue to be proud to state that to date, the debt service millage rate for taxpayers has not increased. In addition to our successful accreditation visits, 3 outside audits demonstrated our commitment to excellence in finance, career and technology education, and child nutrition. Section C, communications and community relations. 4 performance standards make up the communications and community relations domain. They range from effective communications and interpersonal relationships to building coalitions and collaboration and trust. I'm proud of the fact that Richland 2's legacy of giving back to the community has continued throughout my 5 years as superintendent. In addition to our support for United Way, for the past 2 years, district employees have shown up and given generously to support the American Heart Association. Supporting these 2 community organizations is in line with our efforts to focus on equity issues that impact our families, including access to health care and career opportunities. In a little over a week, Richland 2 will be on the receiving end of another national award from one of these organizations that we support. While our new mass communication platform, Parent Square, is all the buzz right now, last year our focus was on improving internal communications with a new intranet called R2i2. As our virtual headquarters, it is the best way for our employees to get the latest information needed to stay in touch and informed. The analytics from the past year demonstrated that it is being used as an effective communication tool. Section P, professionalism. The professionalism domain completes the evaluation tool. The domain's 4 performance standards speak to modeling professionalism and integrity, building productive relationships that support our mission and vision, participating in professional development, and providing service to the profession, district, and community. This section of my portfolio demonstrated a variety of professional development activities, including continued participation in the Digital Promise League of Innovative Schools, receiving invitations from organizations like AASA to share information on district initiatives, including the Premier 100, pursuing national superintendent certification, and representing our district and state on advisory boards, including the newly created Dean of Education Advisory Board at the University of South Carolina and College Board Superintendent's Advisory Council. In conclusion, I want to share 3 insights from the 2021 accreditation process that summarizes what is reflected in the portfolio, and most importantly, in how we work, learn, and live in Richland 2. The accreditation team noted that Richland 2 displays clear evidence of effective governance and leadership. 2, professional learning structures in the district are cohesive, coherent, and deeply embedded in the culture. And number 3, Richland 2 practices wise stewardships of its resources. I want to thank the school board members that are here and our community for the opportunity to share tonight a few of these highlights. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Dr. Davis, for that report. We have no one signed up for the second public participation. I'm going to move our board and superintendent comments to the end, which is traditionally our practice for those to be at the very end of the meeting. So if I can have a motion to go into executive session, please.
Mr. Chair,
Ms. Mackey.
I move that we convene an executive session for the purpose of the superintendent's evaluation.
Motion made by Ms. Mackey. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Dr. Holmes. Is there any discussion? With no discussion, we'll take the vote. Ms. McFadden, are you voting aye or aye? Vote is unanimous. We'll now convene into executive session. Thank you. Discuss the superintendent's evaluation. If I can have a motion to come out of executive session, please.
Mr. Chair,
Ms. Mackey.
I move that the record reflect that executive session was concluded at 9:51 p.m.
Motion made by Ms. Mackey. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Dr. Holmes. Is there any discussion? With no discussion, we'll have the vote. I think it came up on the system. If you're not logged in. Okay. Motion passes unanimously. We will now move on to the superintendent's evaluation, the voting on executive session items. If I can have a motion, please.
Mr. Chair,
Dr. Holmes.
after reviewing Dr. Davis's report on the district's progress and considering the board's members' comments regarding Dr. Davis' performance, I move that we conclude as a board that Dr. Davis receive an overall meets expectations evaluation for the 2021-2022 school year. I further move that as a result of Dr. Davis's overall meets expectations evaluation, that Dr. Davis's employment contract with the district be extended 1 year through June 30th, 2026.
Second.
Thank you. Dr. Holmes made the motion. Ms. Mackey seconded. Is there any discussion?
Mr. Chair,
Mrs. Agostini.
I'd like to make a secondary motion to remove the extension of the one-year contract and keep it as it is.
All right, secondary motion made by Mrs. Agostini to remove the 1-year extension. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mrs. McFadden. Is there any discussion? With no discussion, we'll have the vote on that. Christine, do you want us to do that hand vote, or you can do that electronic? Okay.
It's not correct on the screen.
To remove the 1-year extension?
The second is not.
Oh, the second's
It
not,
needs
you're
to
right.
reflect who seconded that.
Okay, but you have it as Ms. McFadden as the second, okay.
Okay.
Motion fails, 3 yes, 4 no. So we're back to the original motion. Is there any discussion? With no discussion, we'll take the vote at this time.
Can I get your motion, Dr. Holmes? Because I don't have it.
You didn't see, you want me to read it
Oh,
again?
I'm sorry. She
Okay,
didn't have a
here you go,
copy of it.
Christine.
I apologize, Christine. I'm sorry.
Thank you, Christine. You're welcome.
All right, motion's on the screen. All right.
Mr. Chair,
Ms. Agostini?
I think it's, my screen is saying June 20th, 2026. Should it be June 30th, 2026,
Yes.
the extension?
I corrected it.
Okay. With that, we'll take the vote. Motion passes 4 yes, 3 no. We will move on now to the next item on our meeting, which is the draft agenda for September the 27th. Dr. Davis.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, and our members of the public who are viewing, our draft agenda for the September 27th board meeting is called to order at 5:30. We'll convene an executive session where we'll discuss student appeals and breach of contracts. At the coming out of executive session, we'll have our inspirational moment, followed by the approval of the agenda, and then the special recognitions. We'll have the approval of our consent agenda, public participation, number 1, voting on executive session items, which would be the student appeals and breach of contract. This is followed by unfinished business, no action requested, report, food service update. We'll have new business, no action requested. We'll have the report back to school, Richland 2 highlights. We'll also have policy revision proposals to policy BK, board member compensation and expenses, policy BID, board membership and professional associations, policy BAA, board self-evaluation, and policy IHD, adult community education. This will follow with a draft agenda for October the 11th, the approval of that draft agenda, public participation number 2, Board of Superintendent comments, executive session 2 if needed, and then executive session 2 voting items is needed. If not, we'll go to adjournment.
Board members' comments.
Mr. Chair.
Dr. Scott?
Yes, I would like to request that we table all policies until the new board arrives, because there's no need to have new policies put in place, and then we're going to be changing the board within the next month. And also, on one of the policies where we talk about being members of certain organizations, I hope that we don't support that policy, because we have board members who will be traveling to Miami at the end of this month who's not returning back to the board, which will only be going to Miami, and then will only remain on the board for the next 3 weeks. So I hope they will not vote to support that we can no longer go to a CUBE conference, but yet they're getting ready to go to one at the end of this month. So I would suggest that all new policies be tabled until the new board arrives.
Dr. Scott, you're going to need to make that a motion.
I would like to make a motion that we remove all updated board policies until the meeting in November of 2022 with the new board members.
All right, do I have a second? Seconded. So motion made by Dr. Scott, seconded by Mrs. McFadden. Is there discussion?
Mr. Chair.
Ms. Mackey and then Dr. Holmes.
I absolutely do not support the motion. I will be on the board, and I will be an active board member until the day that I'm not. I didn't quit being a board member when I didn't file for a 3rd term. I will be an active board member. I will do my job diligently as I have been until the day that I complete my term on the board. And the policies that are in place are not for certain boards. They are district policies for a reason. We don't change policies to fit the agendas of certain people. Policies are in place for overarching organizations, for overarching ideas. It's not for certain boards or certain people. The policies are in place until they need to be adjusted in the future time. But policies are not in place for certain people. I absolutely do not support the motion. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Mackey. Dr. Holmes.
I'll yield to what Ms. Mackey said, because I agree exactly. You all, it doesn't matter whether we're turning over a board in November or not. There are no lame ducks on a sitting board that has been elected for a specific term. And to suggest that would be that, so you're just going to sit here and do nothing until you're not on the board. I concur with Ms. Mackey. They are duly elected until their official time is over. So we do not need to table policies and become lame ducks. So I'm not in agreement with that.
Mr.
Thank you,
Manning?
I got Mrs. Agostini
Okay,
next.
I'll have another comment.
Okay.
Yeah, and, you know, I actually am in agreement in some of them. For example, policy BK and BID, I would like to see those two be held until November. But policy, for example, and this is why I can't support it, policy IHD, if we do have a student that's 16 that needs to go into adult education, I don't want us to get in the same predicament as we were in at our last meeting where I couldn't support it simply because of an age change and a policy change of, 1 year. So, while I'm in agreement that BK and BID should be, we should wait upon that or postpone those votes, there are other policies that I do believe are important to be voted on sooner rather than later. Thank you.
Ms. McFadden, you haven't had a chance yet, and then Dr. Scott.
Okay, yes, yes, sir. So I would like to say that I agree with Dr. Scott in that some of the policies that we're trying to change are board member compensation and board member professional associations, with which those people who are trying to vote or would be voting now have the benefit to utilize funds and travel and compensation for 8+ years at least during this time. Now they only have at best 2-3 meetings left, less than a month, and they want to change the policy for the new board members that are coming in. That's stifling their growth, as Dr. Scott has mentioned. So they've been able to utilize and take advantage of these policies that have been in place for years, and now we have a brand new board coming on. These people are rolling off, and they want to put in practice things that they're not even going to be here to apply. So I do agree, like with what Ms. Agostini said, that there might be one policy IHD that we could, go ahead and vote for. But for those that would directly affect those who are going to come on in their tenure on this board, I think it is unfair to try to change it at the 12th hour.
Dr. Scott.
Yes, I was referencing policy BID, which is Board Membership in Professional Associations. And I would stand on this, firmly on this, because the conference that we will be attending at the end of this month is what's called a CUBE conference. Now we have board members who are getting ready to go attend a CUBE conference, but want to change a policy where the upcoming board and further on will not be able to attend these conferences. So I just don't understand, why is it okay for board members to attend this conference and then vote later on a policy where this conference won't be any longer a part of that?
Actually, for the record, Dr. Scott, I don't think
Yes.
the intent was never to stop people from traveling to those conferences.
Right.
The point of question is, are we formal members of the organization, which is very different than than being allowed to travel.
Thank you for saying
to
that. And we are members of the CUBE conference. But if you look at this policy that you want us to revise, you have removed that from.
Now, we removed the membership. We did not remove the ability to travel to those conferences. That was discussed at our board retreat.
Right, but what
travel was still allowed.
I understand that. But in order to attend a conference like this now, you will have to get a approval from the entire board.
Well,
and that
I mean,
just doesn't make
and those
sense
are
to
draft-
me when you didn't have to do that going now.
Those are draft policies, so
Right,
the board may or
exactly.
may not make the changes as they are in
Right,
draft.
and
There
then
may be other changes that come about, and I would make the argument that if we're going to say that somehow my authority is somehow stymied because I am no longer going to run in November, so somehow we're going around state law. State law, last I mentioned, didn't say you are a fully authorized board member with all the responsibilities and duties thereof until you decide not to run again.
Right.
If we're going to do that, then I would recommend that if we feel that that is the ethical thing, that we also extend that to board members who are up for re-election, because we've had more board members come off this board for lack of re-election than we have from ones who have considered no longer running. And
Right.
so are we going to say that anybody
fine.
who's up for reelection can also not travel, also shouldn't be involved in policy
I
making?
totally agree that if you're up for reelection, you should still be able to be a part of this, because there's an opportunity that you could be
And so how do we know
reelected
that
to
you don't come back?
But someone who's not running and will go to a conference at the expense of this conference and then only have 3 weeks left, that information that they may or may not receive at the conference is not going to be utilized. And when we're talking about
Well, I
being
think
good
that's a
well,
personal
let me just
opinion
say
whether
this.
it's utilized
We're
or
talking about
not.
being good stewards of the taxpayers' money, but yet we have several board members who are not running for reelection but want to attend the conference in Miami. That's not good stewardship
Well,
of the taxpayers' money.
I think we have
Thank
other
you.
examples of lack of stewardship of money. At this time, I'm going to ask us to go ahead. We have the motion out there in a second. If we can take the vote on Dr. Scott's motion.
Mr. Manning, I'd like to make
I
one,
wanna-
cla-
no,
I-
I wanna-
I'd like to make one clarity.
Call for the vote. Let's vote,
Okay.
please. We have board superintendent comments.
Okay.
Motion fails, 2 yes, 5 no. Unless there's any other items that folks want to have added to this agenda, we'll move on to the voting for the
Mr.
draft
Manning?
agenda.
Mr. Manning?
Yes, ma'am.
I would like to add to the upcoming agenda, or maybe, for September 27, a safety of the whole committee meeting prior to the original board meeting.
Okay, that's not typically something we vote on, to have a meeting of the whole.
Do we need to vote on committee meetings?
We've
Mr.
never
Manning?
voted on committee meetings in the past.
Okay, well, I'll just send an email out to everyone, letting them know that we will schedule a safety of the whole committee meeting for
Do we have a-
September 27th at 3:30.
We can't do that. We have something at 3 o'clock on that day. It's a ceremony of some kind.
Yes.
At 3 o'clock, so on the 27th, yes, ma'am.
Okay, then I would go back. Well, when I looked at that, not all of the board members had signed up to attend that event. So that's something I'll just send an email out, because when I looked, it was only 3 board members that actually signed up to attend the event on the 27th.
That doesn't mean that there's only 3 that will attend. I would ask that you work with the board, just as you have always asked us to work with you and other board members.
And you
all the
don't, so I
time.
would send out, because we said that safety is so important, and with all the things that's going on at football games and within our schools, and especially at Blythewood Academy, I think that should be our number 1 priority. So I will be sending an email out on the next safety and
That's fine. I would
security
just ask
committee of
that
the
you
whole.
work with board members on the ability to attend. Mrs. Agostini?
Mr. Chair, I move to add to the agenda to hear a grievance that's been requested in an email that we have all received.
Mrs. Agostini, in order to do that, we'd have to first waive our policy. So we're
Oh,
going
excuse
back-
me, I'd like to vote on hearing that.
I know, but we can't vote to hear until we vote to waive the policy.
Oh.
The,
Please help me understand what.
well, and now, unfortunately, because we're in public, I can't elaborate on. I think I know which one you're talking about, but if it's the one we were talking about, we were told we would have to waive board policy in order to have that opportunity to have the hearing, if it's the one I'm thinking about. But I'm
There's
I'm
only
in a
one.
position. What's that?
There's only one.
Well, then the one that, if it's the one I'm thinking of, then what we were given, what we were told was we would have to waive board policy in order to have the opportunity to have the hearing. So we'd have to have a policy, put that policy up for temporary waiving before we can have the hearing.
I'm not tracking why we would have to waive any part of it.
Mr. Chair, I think it was clear in the email. The email was
I
clear.
can't discuss it in public, but the email talked about what the policy is and why that would have to be waived in order to hear it. That
Is it
was
a
all.
timing issue?
It's not a timing issue.
Mr.
I really can't discuss, I mean, it's a legal matter, I can't do that
I would
here
say
in
to be
open
careful,
session.
Mr. Chair, about discussing it publicly.
I'm not going to add that right now because there's legal implications for that we need to discuss in detail. I'm not trying to stop it, but I need to make sure that if we do it, we're doing it the right way per what our legal counsel provided us as the path that had to be taken.
So can we go ahead and take the vote to waive that policy?
I mean, if you would like to ask to have that an agenda item to waive that policy, then you can make the motion to have it added. One
Ms.
minute you want me
Agustin,
to
is
act
that
on
your-
no policies, now you want to add policies.
Yeah, well, no, I would like to
Well, it
then
would-
look at the policy because I'm not sure, I've read the emails and I'm not sure what the problem is with hearing this grievance. I'm just not understanding.
I would just ask you to go back and read the email from legal counsel to get a better understanding of what we were told. I'm not being difficult. I'm going
No.
based off of what legal counsel specifically prescribed to us.
I will read it again, but, the one thing that I read that I thought was a discrepancy, we've had a problem with our own administration, so I'll read it again and bring it back up at the next meeting.
In
Thank
fact,
you.
I think one email I got back actually specific from a board member mentioned that would be a policy they were looking to waive with the new board, but I'm not going to address that right now because there's too many implications publicly for a matter that's legal. All right, with that, we're going to go ahead and take a vote on the agenda as presented.
Mr. Chair,
Ms.
move to
Mackey.
approve the agenda items for September 27th, 2022.
Before we do that,
Well, I have a motion on the table. I have to address that now. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Dr. Holmes. Yes, ma'am, Ms. McFadden.
okay, so I did find that policy real quick, so I was wondering what the process is that I need to do to make a motion on that.
Make a motion to put the policy up to be waived. Just
Okay.
make that motion as a secondary motion.
Can I do that now?
Yes.
I'd like to make a secondary motion to add policy policy GBK/GBK-R, staff concerns and complaints to the board meeting on September the 27th.
For being waived.
For being waived, yes, sir.
All right, the motion's been made by Ms. McFadden. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mrs. Agostini. Is there any discussion?
Mr. Manning.
Dr. Holmes?
Yes. I'm going to say this because I think it needs to be said. I'm going to always be a person that wants to hear grievances. I don't have an issue with hearing grievances. But what I have an issue is we have been advised in the executive session and have received this in writing that there is legal implications for talking about this, first of all, out here, and secondly, is legal implications for waiving the policy. Now, and I know that we have people here who will try to turn this and spin it and say that the other board members don't want to hear issues. That's not true. We are supposed to be here to make sure that this district does not get sued. That is money that the district will have to pay because we're doing flippity-jippity things at a whim. You are a sitting board member. You know the policy. You know it was given to you in writing. You know it came from an attorney. So why were we going to play this game, again, playing games, come out here on this floor to appease specific populations when you know that they have legal implications? And then what you want to do is you want to turn around and say that, oh, they don't want to hear that. That's not the case. So I'm going to say for the public, no. Board members up here do not mind hearing your issues. I specifically am one of them that does not mind. But what I do mind is I will not sit here as a good standing board member who knows that we will get this district potentially sued to play a game. So I am not going to be voting for this, not because I don't care about your concerns, but we have a responsibility to the people that we serve in this community. And we need to stop this politicking and playing games. Do your job.
I'm not sure what you mean by us getting sued.
Mr. Chair,
Mrs.
Mr. Chair,
Mackey.
do I have the floor? Thank you,
Yes,
Mr.
ma'am.
Chair. I would encourage people to actually read the email that we've gotten from legal counsel to fully understand what the issue is before making a decision, number one. Number two, I have some concerns about waiving certain policies for specific people, for specific individuals. Thirdly, we open Pandora's box. If the policy is waived for the reasons that have been given to us by by legal counsel, then you open Pandora's box with anyone else who has fallen into that category retroactively. So I would just advise the board or encourage the board to tread lightly with regard to this, and at least until they understand fully what the email said.
Mr. Manning?
Dr. Scott.
Yes, I want to make a comment. We are policy makers. Therefore, we have the ability to change policies when it comes to our students, our faculty, and staff. And many times you guys have heard me say, if there's any employee or volunteer or parent who wishes to bring their concerns to the board, that I am going to be their number one cheerleader, because it may not be you today or your family member, but it could be you tomorrow. And the same people that feels like we should not hear it or we should not change policies, if it was them or their family members, they would want us to have the same grace that we so much talk about and kindness that we talk about. In the email which I read, we do have the ability to waive the policy to allow an employee that has given so much of their time and dedication to this district. And I am so tired of when people come and want to be heard, we play games, as some people would say, and we don't allow them due process. And that is wrong, and I will continue to support that. Because even with you guys sitting out there, if it was you, you would want me to be the voice for you. Your spouses will want me to be the voice for you. Your kids will want me to be the voice for you. And guess what? I will be the voice for you if it's your day that you have to come and ask for a grievance. Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's interesting.
And now we're into details, which we shouldn't have been into.
We sort of pick and choose which employees we want to support wholeheartedly and which ones we don't, which I think is evident based off of some of the things we've seen tonight, how we want to do that. But I also, we talk about good stewardship of money, and we have a lawyer warning us that this is not a good idea, yet we want to step into it or be asked to waive this policy, which I do think would open up a Pandora's box of issues. But with that, we have a motion, we have a second. Ms. Christine, are you good?
Yeah, I just need to make sure I have the motion correct. The motion on the floor was made by Mrs. LaShonda McFadden. Who was the second?
No,
Dr.
I moved
Scott.
that we approve the board agenda items for September.
No, this is the
27th.
secondary motion.
The secondary motion that I have is I would like to make a secondary motion to add policy GBK/GBKR for discussion to be waived. That motion was made by Mrs. LaShonda McFadden. Who's the second?
Dr. Scott seconded it. Oh, I'm sorry, Lindsay seconded it. I'm sorry.
Okay. Okay. So
Getting
that's the
long.
current motion on the floor.
Yes, that's the current motion on the floor. Everyone's clear on what we're voting on? Motion fails, 3 yes, 4 no. We are back to Mrs. Mackey's original motion to approve the agenda as presented, with the second by, who was this, Dr. Holmes. At this time, we'll take the vote on that.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
I would like that we table superintendent and board comments tonight. It's a long night, and we go straight to adjournment.
I
I
would like
agree.
to speak at the end, Mr. Manning.
All right, well, I'm going to have to take a vote then on the, on tabling that item. So if you want to make a motion to do that, you can.
I'd like to make a motion that we table the comments for this evening, being that it's a long night, and we always talk about staff has been here a long day. It's after 10, almost going on 11 o'clock, so I'd like to table the comments.
Motion's
And
motion's made by Dr. Scott. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mrs. Agostini. Is there any discussion? All right, we'll have the vote.
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
do we have the prerogative just not to say anything, or if we don't want to speak?
we do have the prerogative.
Yeah.
Board members always have the prerogative to
Not
say
say
nothing
anything.
if they so choose. Motion fails, 3 yes, 4 no. We'll now go into board and superintendent comments. I will start with Dr. Scott.
Everyone have a good night.
Thank you. Mrs. McFadden?
Well, so since we voted to go ahead and have comments, I'll go ahead and give comments. This has been a tumultuous year since our last contract. A lot has happened. A lot has transpired in the news, in the district, out of the district, in schools, gun safety. I think that's where it started in December, and it just catapulted from there. Whenever, you look at something and you find things out, it's going to come to the surface eventually. Through everything we've been through, I've enjoyed my time working with these fine folks. But I will say that it's been an interesting year. I'm glad that we are wrapping this up. We can take a breath and start fresh, and move forward with some new goals and getting our district back where it needs to be. Protect the brand, act. The culture and environment here needs to be improved, and we're going to run with that. 95% retention rate. We'll see. So I just want to say thank you all for your time, and have a good night.
Thank you, Mrs. Agostini.
Have a good night.
Cheryl Caution Parker, Dr. Caution Parker, sorry.
Just want to say that some of the events this evening are really pathetic and sorry, and reflect on those that it needs to reflect on. Other than that, have a good evening.
Ms. Mackey?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Dr. Davis, thank you for another exemplary year of being the superintendent of this district. I am a mother as well as a board member. Certain things are fluid, certain things are not. I will always be a mom. My students were educated in Richland too, and I know scores of other students who've been educated in this district and who got a chance at life because they were educated in this district. I appreciate the work that our superintendent, that our staff, that our teachers, that our principals employ every day. We talk about keeping the main thing the main thing. The main thing is educating students. The main thing is making sure that our teachers have the resources they need to be able to educate our students. The main thing is making sure that principals have what they need in order to support the systems that are in place in these schools, and to make sure that our superintendent has what he needs to be able to support those systems. I'm thankful when I wake up in the morning. I count my blessings. There are good, there are bad. I want to say that it has to be a sad state of affairs to wake up in the morning and think of how you're going to make someone else miserable this day. How are you going to make someone else feel bad this day? How can I ruin this person this day? What can I do to make this person feel, or system, to sabotage this system so that I feel better? I thank God that I don't rely on castigating others in order to make myself feel better. That I don't have to belittle others, blow out somebody else's candle to ensure that my candle stays lit. So for the people who are here for the right reasons, I thank you. I praise God for the teachers that we have and our principals and our superintendents who keep the main thing, and those who don't think it a robbery not to try to destroy others to feed their own self-esteem at the end of the evening. Those who got to be here, thank you. Those who choose to be here, thank you. Have a wonderful evening. Bless you.
Thank you, Dr. Holmes.
Thank you, Mr. Manning. First of all, I'd like to say to Dr. Davis, thank you for your leadership. I know you understand why I'm saying that to you, but I wanted you to know I appreciate your leadership. That's first and foremost. But then I want to say something else. You know, I sit here and we go through these board meetings and I watch what I have often called playing games, because that's exactly what it is. There, again, I've said this before also, there is no one maverick on this board, or two, or three. There is no one person that is the champion for this district. I'm a 35-year educator. This is all I've done all my life, and I love it. And I am definitely here for the kids and the people who service these students, and that means everybody. So when I sit here and I see this game playing, and I don't care who doesn't like that I call it that, because that's exactly what it is. There is not a time that any constituent or member of this community cannot come to most everybody on this board with their true concerns and their true issues and their true feelings. And that these board members that are sitting here right now don't take the time to try to work it out. But what we don't do as good board members is come in the public and pretend that we can do things that we cannot do. We do not sit here and play with votes. My vote counts because I'm going to vote what I know is right. I don't vote in a pact. I don't vote in a group. I vote my conscience. I also vote knowing that there are legal implications that are mandatory that as sitting board members must adhere to. So to come out here and pretend that you can do anything different and you know the votes will be split, and then run and take pictures, and then run and go on social media, and then run and say all kinds of things about your fellow board members to say they don't care, they're not for you. That is absolutely false. And I am not going to sit here and continually not speak on it. I don't care who does not like it, because the truth is just the truth. If you notice, there are people who wanted to leave because they don't want you to hear the truth. But I am tired. I am tired of the silliness. We are here for kids. That's what I am here for. And I'm tired of this pandering and playing to the audience and downgrading your fellow board members. It is easy to sit back and play couch quarterback or couch coach. It's easy to criticize, but the very ones who've had opportunities to step up, one quit their position and another won't accept the position. And when they were given a position, haven't done anything with the position. But then they come in here and they say, oh, I'm a champion. No, you're not. So we're not going to play this game. So if I'm here after November, that's fine. If I'm not, that's fine too. But we're going to talk the truth up in this camp, because we are tired, and I know some of my fellow board members are tired of the hypocrisy that I see going on. Richland School District 2, I love you. This is my district. I grew up in this district. My children have been in this district, and I'm an educator. But we're not going to keep on playing this game. Now, I know I got a little emotional tonight, and I try to stay calm, but I sat in that seat where Mr. Manning is as chair when everybody's attacking you. It is easy to attack when you are not charged with doing nothing. So the ones who are mostly doing nothing are the ones doing the most attacking. Stay woke, Richland School District 2.
Dr. Davis.
And I'm going to say one other thing. Congratulations on the 15th That's Hispanic Heritage Week. We want to be diverse, and we want to make sure that we say that to everyone. And with that, y'all have a good evening.
Dr. Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to start off by thanking my staff for continuing to support the mission and the vision of the school district, to buy into that mission and school district of our mission and vision, and to support me as the leader of the organization. The things that we get accomplished and the things that I shared this evening, none of those things are possible to accomplish without having an outstanding executive team, senior leadership team, principals, teachers, support staff, people like Georgette Council, my executive assistant, and all the assistants that support our schools, our bus drivers, everyone. The success of our school district depends on everyone working together toward the mission and the vision of the school district. Today I had to listen to things said that were repeated, that were untrue. But as the superintendent and a person who's held to a standard higher than most hold themselves to, I have to remain quiet, present myself to be meek and humble when that is not who I am. I am not a meek person. I am humble because I know that all the things that I've accomplished in this life have been given to me by God and not by man. And so I'm humbled by that spirit that resides in me that allows me to have the courage to stand tall and stand firm and do the work regardless of individuals who may not be aligned to the vision, the new vision of Richland School District 2, one that is more inclusive, one that is more equitable, one that is more diverse, and one that is committed to removing barriers so that all students have an opportunity to be the best versions of themselves. We have to continue to remember why we chose or why we were chosen for the roles that we play.
Absolutely.
But everybody has a role to play, good, bad, or indifferent. And it is what it is. And we'll continue to do what we need to do to continue to be successful. I'm humbled that several members of this board continue to support the move and the movements that we're making, that they can find it within themselves to be professional and give an honest evaluation of the progress, not of the superintendent, but of the school system, of the school district.
Absolutely.
The evaluation represents us as an entity, all of us, and the successes that we have. Cognia will not have happened without everybody. K-12 dive would not have happened without everybody. Our test scores being good, coming back above average would not have happened without everybody. Solving some of the issues that we have as a school district doesn't happen in isolation. It happens in collaboration. And people of high ideas and high intelligence understand that it takes collaboration in order to make something happen, in order to move something together, to put something together, and to sustain that. I'll leave with this quick fable that is one of my favorites. Two lions with inflated egos reached the pool at the same time to drink water, but both of them wanted to have water first. A ferocious fight to the finish as to who will drink water first broke out. Soon they were bloodied all over. It is then that they saw vultures flying over them, looking down hungrily. Soon they realized that their folly stopped the fight and started drinking water together. Had they continued to fight, both of them would have been devoured by the vultures. There is a lesson for all of us to learn in this short story. Togetherness is bliss. Together you achieve more. Pushed by ego when you fight with each other specifically for petty things, always remember vultures are waiting above and on the sideline. And so in this district, we have to decide, are we going to be lions working together, or are you going to play the position of a vulture? Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Dr. Davis and board members. Dr. Davis, I want to, as the chair, and I've been on this board for 12 years, so of the board members, I have the most experience of any individual up here in this role. You're doing a fantastic job. I don't feel that I will support the whole board because I have to, but as an individual, I feel that you have far exceeded the meet expectation that you got tonight, you and your staff, the work that's being done here. And I find it interesting, you mentioned the word petty. Of all the issues that we discussed here tonight, this entire agenda that we had tonight and the things I was asked to put on the agenda and take off the agenda, the only things that had to do with kids was the first presentation, the Kindred group, who obviously is directly impactful to our students. We had a discipline matter that was related to students. Every other item that was brought up is some petty board issue or adult issue. Had nothing to do with children learning, the loss in learning that we had over the pandemic, how we do that. I can't remember the last time we had a discussion about middle school academics and what it is we're doing to make sure that those tough years in middle school that we're progressing. I know you're doing it, but I can't remember the last time I had one of these board members ask me, Mr. Manning, can you put an agenda item on there so we can discuss what's happening with our science scores with students, what's happening with our math scores with students, not in a way to degrade the performance, but to say, I want to understand some of the work that we're doing. No, I don't ever get that. I just get, Mr. Manning, why are you traveling? We don't have enough travel money. I want to look at the board budget. I want a policy that lets us hear every person that wants to have any kind of ill will come before this board and get their day. Those are all adult problems, not kid-oriented, not student-oriented. And I have a lot of people, it's amazing how many times I have words put in my mouth is the reason why I'm not running again, or the reason that I make certain decisions, or the reason that I say certain things, or the reason that I do certain things. People put it out there as if it came out of my mouth, and I promise you it did not. So we have some people that are great at tearing down. They're wrecking balls. They know how to be great wrecking balls. There's a place in this world for wrecking balls, but it's not in this district. We need people who know how to build, who know how to collaborate, know how to work together to build something, make it better and greater, not tear it down because I'm not the one in control. Mm-hmm. With that, Dr. Davis, you're doing a great job. Keep up the good work. Thank you. Staff, thank y'all. And if I can have a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Chair, I move to adjourn the meeting.
Ms. Mackey's motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Dr. Holmes. All in favor, raise your right hands high, please. Motion's unanimous. We're now adjourned.